Welcome to the Diversity in STEM podcast, where we interview leaders in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to help inspire students of all ages. My name is Joe Kent, and I'm the Director of Education for the National Atomic Testing Museum. My guest today is Dr. Julie Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell is the Director of the Biosciences Division at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. She has over 20 years of experience in working at the interface of quantitative and biological sciences. Prior to joining ORNL, Dr. Mitchell worked as a professor of mathematics and biochemistry at the University of Wisconsin and as a principal scientist at the San Diego Supercomputer Center at UCSD. Dr. Mitchell earned a Ph.D. in mathematics at the University of California at Berkeley and a BA in mathematics at San Jose State University. Dr. Mitchell was a Sloan Foundation Fellow, La Jolla Interfaces in Science Fellow, and ARCS Foundation Fellow during her faculty, postdoctoral, and graduate years, respectively. Hello, Dr. Mitchell. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Hi, Joe. Thanks so much for having me. It's delightful to be here.
Well, great. We'll just jump right in. To give our listeners a chance to get to know you better, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I think you've given a good summary of my career trajectory. So I started out in mathematics. I moved over to computational biology when I became a postdoc at UC San Diego. Being joint faculty in math and biochemistry at Wisconsin was a fantastic experience. And, I did this at a time when splits like that were still fairly rare. And then more recently, I wanted to pursue a leadership track for the next phase of my career, and I jumped at the chance to join Oak Ridge National Laboratory about 3 years ago as the Director of Biosciences. And let's see, outside of work, I like to bike along the Tennessee River, hike in the hills, and I'm an avid collector of music.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. What kind of, just out of curiosity, what kind of genres of music are you interested in?
Many, but I like loud rock and roll.
There you go.
Always many different types, but
I couldn't resist asking. Thank you. So as we mentioned in your introduction, you have multiple degrees in mathematics. What fueled your interest in the subject? Was there a particular moment when you decided it was something you wanted to study and turn into a profession?
Well, I originally signed up as a business major in college, but I didn't find economics that interesting, so it wasn't a good career path for me. I always really liked math and chemistry and ended up choosing math in part because the afternoon chemistry labs conflicted with my job. I honestly didn't know anything to do with math other than, I didn't know what you did with math other than teach. And I would not teach children well. So, I needed a PhD if I were going to become a professor of college students. And so then somehow I showed up to UC Berkeley not understanding actually what a research professor did, thinking I was aiming for a nice middle class job where I could teach undergrads 9 months out of the year, have summers free. Honest truth, I definitely got something different, and at least for me has been very rewarding, but it wasn't what I thought I was going for.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up about not knowing what to do with mathematics. And, it's something I think a lot of people are kind of curious about when they think of STEM. They have an idea of the sciences, technology, and engineering, but math is, a lot of people don't know that there's a lot you can do with the mathematics degree. So it's great that you have you on and talk a little bit about that you weren't even aware of what you could actually do with it. And it's something that's really enlightening. I hope that we kind of explore that a bit more. So now, were there any family members, teachers, or experts in the field who encouraged and motivated you? Or more specifically, were there any women that you looked up to?
Oh, my grandmother. She was a huge influence in my life. So she grew up in a farm town in Central California and ran off and got a college degree and became a teacher. She didn't get married till she was 28 years old, and she kept working even after having 2 children. And she was always supportive of women prioritizing their careers, and and I'm always grateful for her example.
Yeah, it sounds like a real trailblazer for sure, in the sense of giving you that role model to really look to and realize that there's not one set path, right? So it's really incredible.
Yeah, and she had a sparky, confident personality too, which I always appreciated about her.
Yeah, great. Now, asking about Oak Ridge National Laboratory, what kind of work do you actually oversee in the Biosciences Division at the laboratory? What does a day in the life of Dr. Julie Mitchell look like?
Sure. Well, recently, as with others, my day looks like, a series of video conferences. But, what we've been doing lately is actually reorganizing our leadership structure. And it's been an amazing experience, both in thinking about our scientific future and in terms of staff development. So, we've sort of divided our research capability spaces into some different sections that we're calling them. So we have biodesign and synthetic biology, we have bioimaging and analytics, and so all of the, say, mass spec and other things will be in that section. And then we have a section that's devoted to biocomputing and information. And so we'll be doing strategic planning in the fall, and so that's certainly taken up a lot of my time recently. But I oversee the Biosciences Division in various ways, some more mundane than others. You don't want them on your podcast necessarily, but, and then I play a role in managing our relationship with the Department of Energy's Biological and Environmental Research Program. So, my days look like a combination of those things.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, what are some exciting things that the Biosciences Division takes a look at? I mean, you've touched on a little bit, but is there anything that really sticks in your mind, and past successes or groundbreaking things that you've been a part of?
Well, I think the most exciting thing that we're rolling out right now is the Applied Plant Phenotyping Laboratory, or APPLE. So it's really a one-of-a-kind in the world system where you can grow plants up to 500 at a time on conveyor belts, and then they're taken around to different stations where they can be weighed, they can be watered, get fertilizer, and then they come over to imaging stations where we can look at the amount of chlorophyll, right, different metabolites, get the shape and kind of growth patterns of the tree. And so on, and do all of this in an automated way, and then start to think about how we take all of the images there and feed them into artificial intelligence pipelines, right, so we can start kind of annotating them and learning what properties of plants, like things that will make them suitable in biofuels applications, or the creation of biomaterials, things for 3D printing, like what signatures can we see within our greenhouse actually correlate with properties that are of bioeconomic value, essentially.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that's the most exciting new thing. But of course, there's always plenty to talk about. But that's what we're very excited about right now.
No, that sounds incredible, like incredible work you're doing out there. So that's fantastic to hear. And now, speaking of your career and what you're doing now, what do you feel best prepared you for that career? Is there something you wish you would have known before you entered the workforce as well?
So, let's see. The best decisions I've made about my career have been bold moves, right? I've changed my academic field. I've given up a tenured university position for a different type of career and new challenges. So I guess I would say that courage is best, for my particular career, courage is best prepared me for that. Now, for listeners, in terms of developing that in yourself, I really recommend having a goal that you move towards, but ultimately to follow your best opportunities. If you're too narrow in your goals, you really set yourself up for disappointment. But if you change around too much, that leaves you kind of unmoored. So, the best advice I might have there is really to stay the course until you find something that really feels worth, jumping off for, something you really feel in your gut is the right move.
Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely. always keep pushing forward and never get complacent, I think is always great. Yeah. And is there anything that you potentially, look back and wish, maybe you didn't make that decision, or something that you wish you would have realized ahead of time? Anything like that? Anything against being prepared? Is there something you weren't expecting, or maybe you were unprepared for, that you wish you would have known at the time?
I don't know. I don't have any regrets. I've made mistakes, but we all make mistakes. But I don't have regrets about the choices that I've made. But there are many parallel universes and more than one path to happiness and success. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but yeah.
No, I was just curious. Thank you. Now, out of curiosity, do you have any stories about overcoming challenges or adversity that you'd be willing to share with us today?
So I have stories, but they're deeply personal. I've certainly had the wind knocked out of me by life more than once. So in terms of advice, never give up on yourself and accept help when you need it. That can be really a hard thing for many high achievers, is the times when you're a little down and you need the help of your colleagues and your friends and families. So be willing to accept it.
No, that's great advice. Absolutely. Now, do you have any advice, additional advice? You've already shared a lot today, but do you have any advice or words of wisdom for students who may be listening, or the guardians and teachers? Are there any resources that you recommend they check out?
Sure. All right, a couple things. First off, speak to yourself in your head like you would speak to a friend. When your inner voice says something mean to you, stop and say it over again with more kindness. You can still be your own worst critic and be nice about it. So something else, so I can tell you another piece of advice that, I can tell you on a personal level, that the worst mistakes I've made have come about because I let my control issues get in the way of doing the right thing. So listeners, you know who you are with this, and the sooner you work on overcoming that, the less damage you will do to yourself and others. And let's see, a resource. Everyone should read a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's by Susan Jeffers. It will help you understand that the only way you can grow as a person is to do things that are a bit frightening. And I highly recommend that you consider expanding yourselves in many ways over the course of your life, and to not be afraid to do that. So anyway, those would be my words of wisdom.
Well, they're wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. It's good advice for all of us, I think, not just students or parents. Certainly all of us can really take something from that. Now, I want to go back a little bit. You were talking about your grandmother, who sounds like an incredible person, but was there anybody academically that also helped kind of push you and guide you to your eventual path? Anybody that sticks out to you?
I mean, you asked, about women in particular. I've certainly had some very, very strong male allies that, in my life. I would say that certainly my thesis advisor, Mo Hirsch, has always been a champion for me. I had, I didn't come from a, research heavy institution as an undergrad. And, I did have professors that encouraged me and, helped me get into UC Berkeley. I had great department chairs at Wisconsin, including, Hector DeLuca definitely comes to mind as somebody who really saw opportunity in me and led a mathematician into his storied biochemistry department there. So, people like that who believed in me. As I mentioned, so just, many people who have given me opportunities and saw something unique in me that they were willing to invest their own energy in.
Well, that's great to hear. Absolutely. I think we all have someone along our path that has really inspired us or made us think of something in a different way that maybe we weren't even considering it. So having someone like that to really help us along the way is really a huge thing for everyone. Now, is there anything else that you'd like to impart? Any wisdom, any things like that? Anything that's going on that's upcoming for the laboratory? Anything that you'd like to talk about before we end?
I think you've asked some great questions. I'm excited for the future of the bioeconomy and whether we can have, again, more of a, kind of green energy future, things like that. There are many ways that I think Oak Ridge could contribute in those spaces. So, I really look forward to the future of science, and, we'll be, again, doing more of our strategic planning in the fall and thinking about all of these issues. But yeah, I'm just, I'm very excited for what we might be able to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years.
I think we'll all be watching Oak Ridge National Laboratory absolutely to see what they come up with next. Now, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, Dr. Mitchell. And thank you to everyone out there listening to this podcast. If you would like to learn more about the National Atomic Testing Museum or Oak Ridge National Laboratory, you can visit our websites at nationalatomictestingmuseum.org and ornl.gov. You can find the NATM on Facebook and Twitter by searching Atomic Museum. Thank you again.
Thank you.